That's the fragile economic story, and one economics writer who's been willing to challenge the wisdom of lockdowns is John Kehoe, the economics editor at the Australian Financial Review. He joins me now live from Canberra. Thanks for joining us, John. Never seems to be much consideration as to how sustainable all this is. Confident we'll bounce back again as long as we shovel out some money in the meantime. But, I mean, how many times can we do this?
Yeah, that's right, Chris. I think we are still searching for a sustainable strategy at the moment. This latest lockdown is costing the economy about $2 billion a week. And it's not really the money that worries me as much as the social implications that come from that. At the end of the day, the economy is society. It's not just a bunch of money changing hands between people and businesses. And yes, the PM's right. After past lockdowns, the economy actually has surprisingly bounced back very strongly once the economy reopens. But that is because the government has tipped in $300 billion worth of stimulus. The Reserve Bank has cut interest rates to zero virtually and is buying government bonds and doing other unorthodox monetary policy too. So it is not costless. It's coming at a price, and probably a price that will be paid over the longer term. At the moment, we're all looking very much in the here and now in the shorter term.
Now, throughout this pandemic, and especially early on, there was a very simplified argument. People are saying it was kind of the economy versus health, which is a really horrible way to sort of polarise the debate, because what's really important here is it's about society, social issues, as you say, making sure our communities and families get through, and balancing the economic costs and the health benefits. And there's been too little discussion about those options, because there is no doubt, the one thing is absolutely certain, is that at some stage we do have to deal with the virus being here among us.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we have this sort of national conversation, discussion about a sort of rational cost-benefit analysis, particularly going forward now that we're getting overwhelmingly the older and vulnerable people vaccinated. I mean, if you just look at some of the data, and, you know, people we'll call you callous for pointing out, facts, but the average age of death...
Just let me interrupt you there, John, because I'll let you go on and make that point, but I want to put up here the graph that you've put together and published, and it brings together these points. And viewers, when they're looking at this, they can see in the bar graph, you're seeing the average age of infections. In the lines on the graph, you're seeing deaths. So we're seeing the overwhelming majority of infections are in the young, but of course they recover. The deaths are occurring in the older cohort where there are fewer infections. And what lessons do you draw from that, John?
Well, the good news is now overwhelmingly those older people who unfortunately and sadly died last year, mainly in the Victorian nursing homes, those older people who remain are overwhelmingly vaccinated. I think about 99% of people in nursing homes are vaccinated. 76% of over 70s have had at least one vaccination, and they've all had a chance to start vaccination as well. So this is why I think we've got to start having a bit of a conversation. Where do we go from here? This Delta variant, it's very infectious. Make no bones about it. This is a serious disease. We're not saying it isn't. It's certainly more contagious and more deadly than the flu because of the number of people it can infect. But at the same time, it's not the Spanish flu, it's not Ebola. And I think going forward now, with the vaccination program ramping up, it's inevitably going to lead to a conversation. When do we open up? How do we prevent these lockdowns? Because it is not a really sustainable thing to be doing. And as the data shows, overwhelmingly, it's older and vulnerable people who either die or get hospitalised from this. Yes, there'll be some younger cases. There always is with all diseases, including influenza and other diseases, cancer and stuff as well. But I think we've got to look at the data and do a bit more of a raw sort of cost-benefit analysis around this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reassuring data about the fact that the most vulnerable in this country are already protected, largely. We keep talking about a sort of a national double dose vaccination rate, which is kind of alarming to people, 15%. But when you talk about 99% in aged care, which is where 80% of the deaths occurred, it gives you some reassurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think 40% of overall people have had one vaccination. I've booked in for my first this Sunday night, which I'm looking forward to doing. And I mean, it's just another thing as well. I mean, I just wrote today, Chris, in the Financial Review that there has been a bit of cautious advice from the authorities about vaccination, when I think for older people it clearly outweighs the risks, and the government and the health authorities probably should be basically encouraging people even more to get vaccinated. I mean, that's the way we're going to get out of this. If the premiers are going to lock down, and that's clearly their modus operandi, they're going to do that whether you agree with it or not, then I think we've all got a duty to get vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Spot on, John. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
John Kehoe there from the Australian Financial Review.